Okay. Okay, everybody, are we ready to begin? send her the link and then she can access it that way. I think that's probably a better way than getting the link through the public. That way. I think that's probably a better way. Okay.
We all set?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're just waiting on Gretchen. 1 second.
Okay.
Yep, she's almost in, I think.
Yep. I'm in.
Okay, perfect. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the January 19th school board meeting for the Abington Heights School District. Unfortunately, we had to go virtual tonight, but would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America.
To the flag.
To the republic for which it stands,
It stands
one
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Which is
Thank you.
under God.
Mr. Mirabelli, I assume you're doing the honors tonight or for roll calls?
Mrs. O'Day is with us this evening.
Okay. Mrs. O'Day, can you take roll call, please?
There. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they got me. Mr. Abdallah? Mr. Abdallah?
Here. Here.
Mr. Azar?
Here.
Mr. Fleming?
Here.
Mrs. Henderson? Oh, okay, yep.
Yep, she said.
Mrs. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Medensky? I know he's here. Mr. Robeson?
Here.
Mrs. Tierney?
Here.
Mr. Acker?
Here.
All present.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to please approve the agenda for the meeting tonight?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second? Okay. On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Abdallah?
So,
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson? I can't hear her. Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky? Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting held December 8th?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson? Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky? Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you. Do we have any board reports for the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
I'm trying to look at.
Yes.
So?
The AEIO had their January meeting this morning. We approved funds for the purchase of smart boards for our elementary intervention programs for our elementary schools. And I also would like to take a moment to thank our Comet Production TV studio. Whenever the district is shut down and not able to communicate well and see programs or athletic events or anything, this group of students goes out and beyond the call of duty and reaches all of us, and it gives us the opportunity to watch our events. So I just want to give a real thanks to the group of kids that do the Comet production, and the AEIO helps to support them. And I just want anyone that, if you ever see these kids working, just give them a thank you, because they're doing an incredible job for our district. And also, PSBA has started a new program for school board directors to collaborate together and sit and just talk about different school board issues. And I represented Abington Heights yesterday for the first monthly exchange. And it was a great opportunity to meet school districts from all over the state, not just our region. And then we broke into regional groups, and it was very interesting, and I was really happy to represent Abington Heights. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Other board reports?
Yep, Warren, this is Mike Fleming.
Okay, Mr. Fleming,
The
yep, I
Facilities
apologize.
Committee met.
I'm having, okay,
The Facilities Committee met earlier this evening for our first meeting, which centered on organization and drafting a charter.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other board reports? And by the way, I'm only seeing half the crowd in a screen, so if I miss you, yell out. Okay, in that case, we'll move to the student representatives. You're on.
Hello. Hi. Students have taken a week off of sports at the high school and are scheduled to resume on Friday. All teams are doing very well in their seasons currently. The boys basketball team remains at a 7-3 record, and the girls basketball team holds an 8-3 record and came in second place at the Riverside Holiday Tournament. The wrestling team holds a 6-1 record and have done exceptionally well in their recent tournaments, coming in first place at the Jim Thorpe Christmas Tournament, second place at the Lackawanna League Tournament, and third place at the Freedom Duel Tournament. Swim also continues to do well in their season. The boys' record is 3-1, and the girls' record is 1-3.
As the second quarter begins to wind down, semester finals and midterms are coming up. Semester finals exams are scheduled to take place in class from January 26th to the 28th, and the first semester will end January 28th. Midterm exams will take place February 3rd through the 4th. Student Council has also decided to push back their date of the semi-dance and will postpone it to a later date sometime in the next 2 months. And finally, the senior class pasta dinner will take place February 21st from 5 to 8 in the high school cafeteria. Tickets will be available soon. Thank you.
Great, thank you both very much. Okay, next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Acker. I'm going to share my screen. Moment. Can you see where my...
I think it was just that tab was.
Is it sharing?
Not yet.
So go here.
Activate this and then open the Zoom app.
All right. Thank you for your patience. What I would like to present to you today is up on our webpage, and this is the revised presentation from last week with more data in it. I'm going to go through some of the key points and data points that were updated, and then I will provide a recommendation to the board to consider regarding the masking and quarantine motions. Much like the last time we met in early January, it is important to highlight our goals, most importantly, to keep our students and staff safe and to provide the best in-person educational experience possible for our students. Those are our goals, and our goals relative to decisions we make today should be aligned to those. The last time we met, I provided some of the most up-to-date Pennsylvania Department of Education early warning monitoring system data. And what you saw was the last time was on January the 7th. We had a PCR, or a community transmission rate, of 30%, which was up from 22. What is a little more optimistic is the most recent, which is January the 14th. The Department of Health pulls these in 7-day increments. So again, it's up, but only a little more than 1%. And to give some reference, we know that when taking a look at the community transmission calculations, anything above 10% is considered high, anything above 8% is considered substantial. And one of the options before the board tonight is to consider a mask mandate that is aligned to community transmission. And this is the table from the Department of Health that I'm referencing, where masking would be for 8% and above, and it would be mask optional for 7.99% and below. And again, this can be found on the Department of Health's website, and it's updated every 7 days. In addition, I've provided the most up-to-date data as of today for the cases, the 14-day rolling cases in all of our schools. What you can see is that the last time that we published this data was December the 21st, and you can see we had a total of 38 cases across all of our schools. At this point, on January the 18th, the last time we polled yesterday, we had 164. So we've seen a 77% increase. We are hoping that we have seen the apex of that. However, it still has a substantial impact on our school community, as evidenced by this local data. The next set of data that I showed the last time and now updated to reflect today is the amount and the number of COVID positive cases, close contact quarantines, and then total quarantines. And what we're seeing is a similar pattern as what we saw before. In fact, it's the same number. 97% of our students that were close contact quarantines were negative. So there are 623 close contact quarantines. For the most part, those are unvaccinated students. Of those 623 that were quarantined, 17 showed up positive later. So 97% of our students that were out on quarantine were not positive. The next data set is new. We've been asking our families to fill out a COVID reporting form to help us assess the number of positive COVID cases, as well as students that are symptomatic. We've had a fantastic response from our school community. We started this when we came back from break, right around January the 4th. And as of today, we had over 425 families submitting information. So we've had 425 responses. Of those responses, there were 201 reported COVID positive cases and 52 cases where families indicated that their children were symptomatic, which we're talking about 253 COVID positive or symptomatic cases out of the 425. And in looking through this data, we asked our families if they felt comfortable to let us know if they were vaccinated or not. And what we found through this data collection is that 70% of the families that reported symptoms or COVID positive with their students were vaccinated. 30% of those were unvaccinated. So that brings us to the recommendations. And given the data before us that I took a look at, because currently, right now, students that are vaccinated are not quarantined. And when I take a look at the data in front of us, I'm seeing that the current strand of COVID does not discriminate between students that are vaccinated and unvaccinated. Therefore, my recommendation tonight regarding quarantine would be the board to eliminate quarantine for asymptomatic close contacts. Also, given the data and the increase in positive cases that we have seen over the last month, I would ask the board to consider aligning the mask mandate to community transmission, utilizing the weekly % positivity rate for Lackawanna County as published by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. This means that tying it to the community transmission rate, Abington Heights School District would be mask required anytime that rate is over 8%. We would be mask optional from 7.99% or below, and this would be to begin on Monday, January 24th for both recommendations. That concludes my presentation. Pass it over to Mr. Acker.
Thank you very much. At this time, any comments from the board? Before we go on, we'll have another opportunity to discuss this when we move to making a motion. Mr. Robeson.
Thank you, Mr. Acker, and thank you, Dr. Schaefer. And thank you for supplying the numbers. That helps. In terms of the, there was a huge increase in cases. I think you said 77%. Do we have an idea of what kind of masks are being worn in the schools? I know that's probably a tough number to get, but is there any idea of what kind of masks we're seeing? Are we seeing N95s? Are we seeing cloth? Are we seeing surgical masks?
So what I would need to do is get back to you on that. I do not know. I'd have to talk with the principals. However, given our discussion last week, I have ordered and received approximately 10,000 KN95 masks, given some of the data that was reported. So we are at the ready to provide masks as KN95s as options, these respirators, for anybody that would so choose.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer.
Mrs. Tierney.
Can I ask
Mrs. Tierney.
questions? Can you hear me?
Yes.
My questions are not necessarily on the plan. My questions are on how the virtual education has been at both the middle school and the high school at this time that we've been they've been home. My questions are most of the faculty in the building teaching their classes, or are they most of the faculty home?
Tierney, I don't have that information in front of me. However, I will be in contact with the principals to give you an idea of what numbers we're talking about shortly.
Okay. And my other question is, are there still a problem with substitute teachers going Zoom? Are all of the teachers able to go into their specific classrooms for virtual?
We're not having any substitutes going in virtually, and I haven't had any issues pop up. However, I'll check around with the team to make sure that's not the case.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Tierney, 25% of the teachers have been in the building.
25%. Okay. And the high school and the middle school, you think?
About the same.
They're about the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the part of the board? Okay, then the next part of our meeting would be public participation. I'm going to ask Mr. Mirabelli to bring the people forward and announce them. I'm going to ask that when you start your comments, please tell us who you are and where you live. As you may recall, that public comments are for citizens of the school district, and they are limited to 3 minutes. So please be concise.
Okay, our first speaker is AH Public. I assume that is someone here on site. Okay, please state your name.
Okay.
Okay,
Are they
you are unmuted.
muted? Oh.
Okay, we'll move to the next speaker. Stephanie Luciani. If you'll unmute, you'll be heard.
Okay.
You should be good. Okay, my name is Stephanie Fuentes. Can you hear me?
I believe we can hear you, Stephanie.
Yes.
Is that a yes?
I can't really tell.
Yeah, they can.
You can?
Okay.
Yes,
so
we
my
can hear
first
you. We
question
can hear
is,
you.
what was the school district's policy on quarantining for students that were within close contact to a family member within the household, but they did test negative?
I'm not sure. Are we hearing?
And even that she's on my phone for all of these things. You to be working either. Were you guys able to hear Stephanie's question? Okay, so it's working through my phone. Yeah, so they can hear you.
So I want to ask, what's the quarantine period for a student that tested negative, but someone in their household tested positive? What does the school district's policy state?
Luciani, we're getting that information. I want to make sure I give you the most accurate information that we have here.
Okay. So I looked up what's online at the district website, and it states that the student is to be quarantined for 8 days. However, the school nurse is asking me to quarantine my daughter for a total of 18 days, 10 days for parents, 8 days for her. I don't think this is being interpreted correctly, and I just wanted to see what was your input on the policy.
Ms. Luciani, let me reach out to you and make sure that I get all the pieces of this question right, as well as your circumstance. And okay. I can do that this evening and get you an answer. I just want to make sure I'm understanding everything. If you're here, I can touch base with you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was actually a different Stephanie. This is Stephanie Luciani. I'm from Clark
Sorry.
Summit.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay. That's perfectly fine. I wanted to say good evening, Dr. Schaefer, Dr. Vitale, school directors. I wanted to first say thank you to those of you who have taken the time to respond and reach out after my recent emails to you all. It's very refreshing to hear from more than the same one or two people. And the increased communication has given me a lot of hope. Sisters is going to move in a positive direction and start to look like the Abington Heights that my family and I moved here 4 or 5 years ago. It's been 676 days since our children were sent home for 14 days. 676 days ago, we didn't know a lot about COVID, but we know a whole lot about it now. And the fact is that COVID is an endemic virus, which we're all aware is incredibly mild and is going to be with us in some or many forms forever. As you all know by now, I have 3 children in the district. My 5th grader has not had a normal school year since 2nd grade. My 4th grader has not had a normal school year since 1st grade. My 1st grader has never had a normal school year. None of my children have ever seen their teachers' faces. They're forced to sit apart from their peers in a eats at lunch, and they don't know what a field trip is. Children should not be shouldering the irrational fears of the adults that have resulted in masking, quarantine, and the like. Yet our district continues to mask our children and enforce these draconian, unnecessary measures on them. And I ask tonight, if you don't allow them to breathe freely in the classroom, then when? The community transmission rate has no bearing on my children or these school children. You feel you have this right to force my children into masking, and I disagree. You feel that we have some obligation to contact trace, force quarantine, prevent in-person learning, forcing our teachers to teach from their homes. It's time to end the madness, and we need you to stop giving into the hysteria and fear and end it. So if not now, what exactly are we waiting for? I know that it was not in the superintendent's presentation, but the test to stay had been brought up, and I just wanted to make a few points about that program. It only applies to unvaccinated individuals and those with natural immunity from prior infection. And as everybody can agree at this point, not only are vaccinated individuals just as likely to contract and spread the virus, they're even more likely to do so, and the data tonight presented that. A mere 2.7% of the close contacts this school year resulted in the COVID infection. Of those 17, there's actually no way to confirm that they even contracted it in school. And if they were using a PCR test, which can test positive up to 6 weeks after, or was it 12 weeks? I'm sorry, 12 weeks after infection, we actually have no way of knowing if those 3% were actual infections. So 606 quarantines were healthy students. Some of those parents here this evening, whose kids are currently under quarantine. We as a district need to stop contact tracing immediately, accept that everyone has been exposed to some type of virus, COVID or otherwise. And like we've done for our entire lives up to the last 2 years, we'll keep our kids home if they're sick. No contact tracing, no quarantine, no test to stay. It all results in the one thing that we are all aligned in, which is no closures of our schools. Abington can no longer be driven by fear. We need to be driven by science and data, which tells us to move forward and return these children's lives to normal. Masks do not work. Distancing does not work. Quarantine does not work. Give them back their lives, normal classrooms, normal lunches, normal bus rides, normal field trips. Thank you. And since we are having an issue with the laptop, if you would all be okay with it, I can pass the phone off to the next speaker who can announce themselves.
Hi, this is Rudi from Dalton. Good evening. I emailed all of you twice today, and I spoke with Dr. Schaefer. I have some questions for the board. I know that you are not required to answer questions immediately at meetings, but I would assume that you have the following information that I'm about to ask of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making such important decisions. Sorry, hold on. Tonight or any other voting night. Did virtual learning save lives last year? If so, do you have the concrete data to support that it did? I'm assuming the answer is no. By your silence, you should have that data since you're putting many of our children into virtual learning currently. Do mask mandates work? Do you have the concrete data to support that they did? Are COVID tests completely 100% accurate, and does over-testing everyone, including the healthy, save lives? If so, do you have the concrete data to support that it is and that it does? Why are we still only focused on cases and not deaths and hospitalizations, specifically for the age group that you represent? Here we are 2 years later, only focusing on cases and not any other part of the data. You continue to guide your decision-making on cases and cases only, and I would like to know why. Why are you guiding decision-making by community transmission? And I mentioned this at the last meeting, not on the data specific to our children. We're a community heavily populated by senior citizens. Have there been any deaths or hospitalizations of students, staff, or faculty in the district? This matters because we were told 2 years ago to do all of this to prevent deaths and hospitalizations. I'll conclude by saying that when all is said and done and we start dealing in reality, and hopefully we do this soon, I hope that you realize that the CDC, the Department of Health, will not be held accountable for all that has happened. You will here on the local level. I think you feel you will be protected regarding your decision-making during this time because you're following guidance and frankly, very poor legal advice. You will be held accountable for this. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Mr. Marabella, raise the next one.
Can you guys hear me?
Who's this?
My name is Sarah. I live in Clark Summit, and I spoke last meeting.
Yes, we can hear you, but who is it?
My name is Sarah. Sarah
Sarah,
Narrow.
what's your last name?
Narrow, N-A-R-O.
What's your last name?
Narrow,
Thank you.
N-A-R-O. We're good to go? Okay, good. I'm from Clark Summit. So I spoke last meeting. I just wanted to start off
Definitely, go ahead.
I just wanted to start off by saying that these masks have not now nor ever done anything in preventing the spread of this illness. I'm here today to tell this board and other members of the community that my children are not at risk at school or anywhere else for that matter. What is happening is that my children are being affected by the reaction of the authority in the school district. My fourth grader gets put in a corner to have a mask break. My second grader gets told to put your mask up as if breathing fresh air is a crime. My children's masks they come home sopping wet, meaning large particles of bacteria and viruses are stuck in there. Then my children are breathing them in, and getting a new mask doesn't make a difference because that one just gets wet as well. Masking any individual that is healthy for an extended period of time is detrimental to the body's immune system, something people have forgotten about. What is the point of masking kids in school when they are not masked anywhere else? My family does not mask at stores, movie theaters, birthday parties, family gatherings, even sports events where they're breathing in each other's faces for 1.5 hours while they're at practice. They're not sick, they're not spreading anything, and when they are maskless, they're living their lives how they remember. Aside from being without mask as a parent, I do not want my children to be subjected to a test to stay. This place is not now nor ever will be a medical facility. The contact tracing failure proves that the necessity for a test to stay option is also bogus. There is no reason to be testing healthy individuals. The numbers presented today show that only 50 or so individuals were symptomatic. Whatever happened to if a child was sick, they'd stay at home and fighting an illness with rest and fluids. This is endemic. It's never going away. I do not understand why non-medical personnel get to decide what is medically best for other people's children. If parents want to mask or not mask, it should be their own choice. Please, can we start living our lives and let our kids breathe freely? Thank you.
Hi, Jeremy Spear from Clark Summit.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I would just like to say how extremely difficult it has been to watch you guys over the past several years turn what many of us seem to be a pretty simple solution by allowing the parents to make decisions for their students into these obtuse sessions where you pontificate, what if this student this, what if that student that? Well, your contact tracing, it was quite a failure in my estimation. Those are hundreds of students who were forced to have subpar learning, hundreds of families that had to come up with subsequent plans because their kid was forced to stay home. There's been zero consistency to this. And from my understanding, you're all in separate rooms while wearing masks. Are you kidding me? What I would like is to see parents having the input. One meeting is pointed, well, the Pennsylvania Department of Health said this, so we have to follow. None of us have faith in the Pennsylvania Department of Health anymore. The next meeting is, well, we're a separate entity. The simple solution is to allow the parents to decide for their own students. Thank you for your time, and please do the right thing and stop forcing our children to go to school with masks. I appreciate the fact my 7-year-old is still in school. That's a big help. But her 14-year-old is at home forced to learn on the computer. Now, she can stay home. So again, I appreciate that, but it shows how inconsistent you are. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hi. This is Amy Scandale. I'm no stranger to the group here. I'm very disappointed that we couldn't meet in person, but we're kind of having a lot of fun out here, so I don't mind it. But virtual, I'm sure it's not fun right now. Imagine being a kid. Last week, I talked about ending the fear. Today, I want return of normalcy. What does 0.001% mean to all of you? Does anyone want any input? What's that number mean to you? Anybody? That is the death rate of children from COVID. Do you know what insanity means? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Another question, rhetorical, but you can certainly answer. If you went to the same doctor for 2 years, had the same treatment, had the same medication, and you didn't get better, but actually you got sicker, would you still go to that doctor? Would you still take that medication? That's what we're doing with masks. That's what we're doing with all of this. It's got to stop. Many studies show that masks don't work. We've emailed them. We've had poster boards. Everything's been on the table. And you're not listening to us. And we're tired. We don't want to be here. We want to be home with our kids. Okay. The mask is a false sense of security. Look, like Jeremy just said, you're in your offices with a mask on by yourself. Let's stop. You know, this is just not sane. It's just truly not sane. A story I want to share with you is Mr. McGarry, who we absolutely love, is the assistant principal at my daughter's middle school. We saw him at church on Sunday. Ava said, as she walked away, she almost had a tear in her eye. She said, Mom, wow, I have never seen his face. My daughter, my 10-year-old, has never seen her assistant principal's face that she absolutely adores, and he has been nothing but kind to us. There is talk all over the US and news about N95 masks. I am a nurse. I have been trained and fitted for these masks. They are not made for children. They are not made for people to be walking around. If you tried to wear one, you'd maybe last 15 minutes. I am not kidding. In fact, directly from the US Food and Drug Administration, they say they are not designed for children. You can easily find this information for your review. The safety plan you have in place is harming children physically, mentally, psychologically, and academically. Tonight, I am requesting to stop the quarantine, which I think we've got that under control. I appreciate that, Dr. Schaefer. We are definitely on the same page. Quarantining healthy children is harming them. I am also requesting to stop treating schools like medical centers. We have physicians. I'm a nurse. I would be happy to help in any way at this school with if you have a question, if a children is sick and needs to go home. I'm requesting not group vaxxed and unmasked, but we are actually segregating. And what do you do to our children if you're doing it to adults? I hear the buzzer. I have one more thing to say. If you can turn the buzzer off, Michelle, that'd be great. If not now, when you keep moving forward,
please finish up. Your time is up.
I have one more sentence, Mr. Acker. I am done with living in fear. I am done seeing children hurt by your measures. Think about that with your vote tonight. I am done with these measures. I thank you for your time, and I'm truly hoping you do the right thing tonight.
Hi, my name is Tara Young. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Thank you. Is there someone else upstairs? Yes, we can. Your name and where you live, please.
Tara Young, Clark Summit. I had logged on to every school board meeting. I've been to 2 others I've never spoke before. I'm fed up. My daughter was sent home about a month ago because another little girl told the teacher that she coughed once. She had to come home for 10 days because she coughed once. I will not bring my daughter to a pediatrician for a doctor's note because I know they're going to test her. Then this week she gets sent home for close contact. I'm done with this. Just so you guys know,
when you guys send my kid home for a quarantine, she doesn't quarantine. She still goes to gymnastics. She goes to her family's house in New York City, sees all her family, all of her cousins. It's nonsense. There is no reason for a healthy kid to sit at home. She needs to be in school. Another thing I want to bring up is my kid is supposed to start kindergarten next year. She's profoundly deaf. She reads lips. You masking all these kids negatively affects her. So because of that, she's going to spend another year at the Scranton School for the Deaf. This needs to stop. I'm done with it. End the mask.
Hello, can you hear me?
Thank you very much.
Hi,
Next.
my name is Amy Everetts of South Abington Township.
Yes, we can.
I have 2 students in South Abington Elementary School. The reason I'm here tonight is my kids last year severely suffered from virtual learning. I'm a full-time worker. My kids have to go to daycare. They had no choice. My kindergartner had to sit all day masked in a room with 30 other students with headphones on, trying to listen, trying to hear what the teacher was saying. And if he was called on and he could figure out on his own how to get his microphone on, he then wasn't understood because he had a soaking, disgusting, sopping wet mask over his face. Thank you for helping keep these kids in the elementary school right now. I appreciate that. But there's so much more that needs to be done. Every day, my son comes home to me, Mommy, when do I not have to wear a mask anymore? And I'm hoping to tell him with the good decisions tonight, you don't have to anymore. But please keep our kids in school as much as we can. I don't want to have to quit my job, and I can't put them back in daycare again to sit by themselves and fend for themselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tara Houlihan, and I am an Abington Heights taxpayer and parent. Could you just clarify something really quick? Is the Test to Stay program still on the table tonight to be voted on? Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Hello?
Yes, we can. What we'll do is, we're trying to collect all and we'll give you the answers at the public session. We will discuss the Test to Stay.
Oh,
But
okay, but so you guys don't know if you're
we're
going to
going
vote on the
to basically
Test to Stay
gather up
program?
all the questions and then try to go through them at the public session. So if you have other questions, by all means.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to discuss it if it wasn't, but maybe I'll just educate some parents just so they know what it is. And then I guess, could you answer what the main goal of the
Okay.
Test to Stay program is? Or is that a later question too? I'm sorry, is anyone there?
Yeah, I've included the Test to Stay information in the slide deck, and as Mr. Acker said, we'll mention that when we get into the comment after.
Okay, so I'm assuming that it's to stop transmission. If that is the case, then why are only unvaccinated and partially vaccinated children and staff eligible for the program? It is now well established that those vaccinated can also transmit and get COVID. What is the science behind the unvaccinated needing to quarantine and test only? I don't want anyone to have to be tested or quarantined that doesn't want to. I believe it should be a choice. Isn't this discrimination of unvaccinated children? Here's a brief background for those not familiar of the Test to Stay program. If an unvaccinated or partially vaccinated student were to be contact traced in school, they would be given 2 options. 1, go home and quarantine for 10 days. The child would be excluded from their guaranteed right to a public education, excluded from practicing and playing their school sport for 10 days, as well as any other after-school activities. Option 2, the parent can comply. and sign a waiver form so their child can participate in the Test to Stay program. If they comply, the school would graciously allow their child to stay in school, but under a few conditions. As long as they comply and agree to taking pre-PCR tests in school over a 7-day period, and as long as the child keeps testing negative on all 3 tests. Otherwise, they would be sent home to quarantine as well. Would you consider this coercion? Basically, your options are comply and test, or your life will equivalently be canceled for 10 days. Now add in that some parents are not willing to give their child this vaccine due to a medical condition or religious belief. Does this now also become religious and medical discrimination as well? And I just wanted to point out that the school is quarantining kids, but only by law, a doctor or the Department of Health has that legal authority to tell someone to quarantine. A school does not have the same authority. Emails over the last few days. The first are 2 legal documents stating that the PCR tests and masks are only authorized for emergency use authorization only. They are not FDA approved, and they cannot be mandated, forced, or coerced on anyone. I also emailed the board and superintendent a 13-page document that lists all the federal and Pennsylvania laws that give our children the guaranteed right to a public education without restrictions or forced masks. Any parent that has a copy of these laws, please reach out to me. As parents, we need to know the rights of us.
Please wrap it up if you can.
Oh, of course. And then finally, I'd like to know who gave the school board authority to make health and medical decisions for my children, for our children. Because I will tell you, I never did. I never gave you that authority, nowhere, and I never will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person.
Thank you. This is Renee Sabovitz from North Abington Township. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my comment
Yes, we can.
is,
Go right ahead. Thank you.
my comment is, we had a prior school board meeting and a mom was asking about having video and mics in classrooms for quarantine students. And after she spoke, there was zero discussion, and the former superintendent just shut down the conversation, and nothing else was mentioned about it. In speaking with the parent from the Lackawanna Trail School District, Lackawanna Trail has this option available to their students, both those in quarantine, those who are absent, those students whose parents want to keep them home because of COVID fears. If Abington is striving for the best education possible, why isn't this an option for our students? Simply to have a microphone in the classroom and a video going. This is not parallel teaching, but merely allowing a student to listen and watch the teacher in the classroom. Is that a problem to do? I guess there's no answer. By merely allowing a student to listen and watch, think of the benefits of hearing the teacher and seeing the class being taught versus the student or the parent just reading a Google Classroom syllabus or worksheet. My daughter just missed 2 weeks of school because of appendicitis. Sadly, she wasn't able to tune into any of her classes. If she had a day when she was feeling well, she would be able to do this. We are Abington, and I believe we can do better than what we are doing for our students. As far as PCR testing, schools are not medical facilities. Masking should be taken away. And as far as segregating students, it should not be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hi, my name is Maggie Roberts, and I live in Clark Summit. I had a quick question concerning our budget, and I didn't know if that was just Mr. Marabelli that could answer it, but if you could just maybe, if somebody knows offhand how much we have in our budget currently.
Are you talking about the cash balance?
Sure.
All of our budget documents are placed on the Abington Heights School District website on the business manager page. If there's something specific you're looking for.
Okay, well, I had reached out to, I think it was Mr. Fleming today, but I realized it was too late to get an answer because I wasn't sure where to find it, because I'm really not invested at all in the school district because my taxes, unfortunately. So meeting after meeting that I've come to, I hear all these parents begging and pleading with the school board for their kids to have these masks taken off and go back to normal. And I just sit here and I'm like, why is this just happening? You know, and the school board just sits there with these blank stares. And I just wonder why there's like, you know, no emotion or anything. And then, you know, I just came across, you know, a lot of information today concerning the ESSER money that you guys are receiving. And I think the reason why we're seeing the blank stares is because you guys know that you're not gonna turn down the money in order to listen to parents, even though that's what your job is supposed to be, is to listen to parents. According to the data that I saw, you've already received 1.7 million. $364,142 of that has gone to a counselor's salaries and benefits. 793,000 has gone to reading and intervention specialists salaries and benefits. So that's like, you know, over $1 million of this COVID relief money that has been spent on salaries and benefits. And then, you know, there was quite a bit more of 246,000, 104,000. That was, I don't know, there was like $80,000 spent on cleaning. I wish I had that job. But anyways, the interesting thing is that, you know, it's sad that you guys don't have a voice anymore as a school board, because you've incentivized our children's education. You've signed contracts. You've sold our children over to this tyranny of abuse for them. And how much are you willing to take to just keep this up? I realize that, you know, you have to have a district plan every 6 months until September 23rd. So is that the goal? Like, you just push back against the parents just until September 23rd so we can receive all this money? And I think prior to COVID, I don't think that Abington was in the red. I'm not sure, but the last meeting that I heard, it was like $16 million. It seems to me that we might want to stop taking the money so you can actually make your own decisions and work for the parents. Thank you.
We have just one more speaker. We have just one more speaker. We're just going to make an accommodation here, move some things around so he doesn't have to go and leave the room to go to speak. So just give me 1 minute and we'll get Tom Sheehan on the line here. You should be here.
Hi, Tom Sheehan, Waverly. Can you hear me? Somebody? Anybody? Say something?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Yes. We can hear you, Mr.
Okay. All right. I just want to be sure it was coming through. There's a little bit of a change here. Anyway, it's been my practice at these meetings to speak to the issue of critical race theory, and I'm going to get to that. But before I do, I want to make a point here that I think everybody should be cognizant of. The situation, the way it has evolved this evening, is an object example of what happens when people try to communicate with nonverbal communication or without nonverbal communication. I can't see you. I have talked on telephones. I have even been on conference calls, but never with a group this size. So it occurs to me that what kids are going through in class, in schools, 5 or 6 hours a day, when the teacher's face is covered and their mouth, and the normal communication that occurs non-verbally is frustrated. It's just very difficult. We're all sitting there doing the best we can, but it seems more and more, first mask, and now we're sitting in different rooms in the same building talking to one another. So I just want to point that out and put that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about this issue. I'm sure everybody here wants to do the right thing. We should all be searching for the truth, not just trying to win a debate. All right. If you're Catholic, then you know something about Vatican II. And for the benefit of those who might not know much about it, Vatican II was a conference that was held by the Catholic Church at the Vatican in the mid-60s. And its purpose was to address issues that had accumulated over the years and centuries with the way the Catholic Church interacts with the rest of society. To give you an idea how infrequent these things are, I think Vatican I was something like 1,000 years ago. Anyway, I'm not proselytizing for the Catholic Church here, but bear with me and you'll see where I'm going with this. So the Pope who called the conference was Pope Paul VI. And after the conference was done, I think it actually took a couple of years. And by the time this happened, I was in my 20s. So I had grown up in the Catholic Church and have been educated in the Catholic Church. So I had seen the before and the after. And in retrospect, I have to tell you.
Can you please?
All right, let me get to my point here. The Pope Paul VI, after he digested everything that came out of that, was motivated to say the smoke of Satan had entered the Catholic Church. I'm looking at a letter here that I came across recently. It was written by the Secretary of the United States Secretary of Education and addressed to the Pennsylvania Secretary of Education. And it involves the ARPESSER funds available. I'm not going to read it word for word. It's not very long, but I just want to be sure you get the gist. Some of the language in here, he refers to the unprecedented funding that's going out to the states and the school districts. He also uses the language, address the social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs. As part of the ESSR plan, the state is assured. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Give me a minute here.
Yes.
Skip down this paragraph. Please be aware.
You're already about 2 minutes over, so please.
I'm coming to the end. If you'll bear with me, I'd appreciate it. Will you? Will you?
I can tell my time. You can take mine. Jack.
We're still listening.
Okay,
please come to a conclusion.
Please be aware that the approval of Pennsylvania's ARPESSR state plan is not a determination that all the information included in the state plan complies with the federal civil rights requirements, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act 1973, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act and requirements under the individual. So they're citing all these, making all these references to legal realities that states and school districts are to abide by. The department is committed to working in partnership with your state so that your ARP, ESSER funds are quickly put to work to ensure students have sustained access to in-person instruction, as well as the comprehensive supports they need to recover fully from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you implement this plan, we expect you to continue meaningfully engaging with stakeholders. I have no idea.
Mr. Sheehan, I think your time is up. Mr. Sheehan, please, your time is up. Is there anyone else upstairs that wishes to speak?
I believe that there's two more gentlemen that would like to speak. I will hand the phone right now. Yeah, you'll be able to hear better.
Mirabella, can you go?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Eric Rudi. I live
Yes,
in
we
Dalton.
can.
Okay. I was going to talk about some other things tonight, but after hearing everybody, this is insane. You all work for us. How can you absolutely, totally, hand in our face, disregard every single one of these parents? How can you do that? Shame on you. Absolute shame on you. These kids are having, we're a room full of adults, and half of us can't even understand what's going on. How in the world can you expect these children to cope with this kind of insanity? And another thing, how come nobody, not one of you, can answer a simple question? These parents who work full-time jobs doing everything in the world, taking care of their kids, that because of you, that they're home for quarantine, that's totally unnecessary, come in with sheets of paper, all kinds of data from every single place they can find it, and every single question posed to you people, you're like, oh, let me get to that later. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, how is that possible? I'll wait. No one's going to answer me. This is exactly what the problem is. You all are the problem.
We have a questions that we're going to try to address at the end of the sessions.
Yeah, you know what's really simple? When someone asks you a question, you answer it. You don't tell them, oh, maybe we'll get to it 20 minutes later. I guarantee you half of you guys don't even know what half of us are saying tonight. But you know what? Keep doing what you're doing.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Is there anyone else?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please.
This is Hayden Evans, Scott Township,
Yes,
Pennsylvania. My grandson is a student here, and I have a few things to go over with you. You talk about testing these kids. You're testing them with test kits that have sodium azide in them, which is a highly toxic. Swine flu, mad cow's disease. Remember those? The world was coming to an end, just like COVID. Unfortunately, no one came to an end. $140 billion was given by Biden to the school districts to keep the schools open, but not here. You want to get rid of it, okay? Then you have 99.5% of COVID cases now are Omicron, okay? Masks do not work. That's by the CDC. Sotomayor, the justice, said 100,000 children are sick. She lied, but that's something that the government does all the time. $200,000 is paid to a hospital for each COVID patient. This is a money-making proposition for the hospitals, for the doctors, and all these companies that give the vaccines. Now, all that's been said to you tonight, all right, is falling on deaf ears. This is like casting pearls before swine.
I believe we have one more speaker.
So let me just.
Okay.
I'm going to hand the phone over to him.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is my name is Patrick Houlihan. I live in the Abingtons. I'm an Abington taxpayer. I have 2 kids in the system. I've had 2 kids through. I've been working for children. I've served on a board with youth sports programs. Hold on one second. I know there's feedback. I'm going to fix that in 1 minute. I've been on a board serving the youth in the Abingtons for 20 years. And what do we say when we're a volunteer? When we ask for help, when we ask for money, what do we always say? We say, it's for the kids. It's what we always say, right? You're all volunteers on the school board. I don't envy your jobs. I know how difficult they are. You have to try to make everybody happy. You're probably making nobody happy. But it's for the kids. We have to think about the impact on the kids, first and foremost. I think you all feel like you're doing that, but let me tell you some truths. These kids, and I said this in August, they are depressed and disconnected from each other. They no longer, what we're doing with these restrictions, masks, quarantines, tests, the whole thing, we're teaching them to be afraid of each other. We're teaching them that it's not good for them to learn how to socially integrate with each other, that they should stay away. Well, what would be the point of putting them into the public school? I mean, if we wanted them just to learn content, we would go virtual school. We send them to the public school so that they learn content and they learn how to solve problems with each other. They learn to be empathetic to each other. They learn to come together. That's part of their socio-educational growth. And we've stunted that for 2 years. We have to get it back now. We have to teach them how to come back together again, how to learn how to read each other's emotions and be sensitive to each other's for their differences. Some of the quarantine rules that we've done in the past are separating kids based on vaccinated or unvaccinated. Has it ever occurred to any of you that some of the reasons that kids are unvaccinated have to do with religious beliefs or medical beliefs? Maybe they had a prior infection and they can't get vaccinated. Maybe they've had a life-threatening allergic reaction to a vaccine and they can't get vaccinated. Should they be treated differently? Should they be quarantined longer or called out in front of kids? You guys know how kids are. This is for the kids. Everybody already said it, so I'm not going to repeat it. These kids have the same mortality rate for COVID than they do any other disease, but they are far more depressed, far more disconnected. You know it. You feel it in your bones. I'm a parent telling you, not for my own kids, but when I said that in August, I can't tell you how many parents came up to me, thanked me for saying it, and shared me their personal story. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to expose their kids, but it's a real problem. So I'm wrapping it up. Dr. Schaefer, thank you. It sounds like we're moving in the right direction, and I am grateful for that. But the proof's in the pudding. We're all watching how you guys handle this moment and how you protect these kids' social emotional development. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
That's everyone here that wanted to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mirabelli, can you bring some that have been patiently waiting online up forward?
Philip Horahan.
Hello? Can I be heard?
Hello, Mr. Horahan. We can hear you.
Thank you. I had attended in person, and there was a room full of, I think it was about 30 or so people, none of them were wearing masks. So we went virtual. So I went home, and I'm attending virtually now. So that's happened. been run out of the building by people who refuse to abide by the health and safety guidelines. And you guys have been run out of the room where you were going to have your meeting. And for those people, we've just accommodated them for 90 minutes, using the building property and building room in order to have their say. That seems odd to me. But let's think for a moment. There are people who are deeply and repeatedly uncooperative with the health and safety guidelines and COVID protocols. Mr. Schaefer's data, Dr. Schaefer's data, showed us a surprising statistic, I thought, about the number of people reporting symptoms in COVID positive tests who were vaccinated. That does not accord with the kind of stuff that we're seeing in the news about the number of people who show up in hospitals who were vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And as you consider how much of that is because it involved, the data you gathered, Dr. Schaefer, seems to have involved self-reporting. And if a large portion of your population are those people, then they're not self-reporting, honestly. So your data is relying on a community, at least some of whom have shown themselves to be unreliable. And to have what, despite it, it is genuinely unclear to me whether or not they believe there is no such thing as transmission of COVID, or whether they just callously don't care about the welfare of others. It has taken me a couple of months to come around to thinking that, but it seems to be the case. About 2 weeks ago, we heard from just one more board member discussing a report from Mr. Robson. So I've been looking about it to try and read about it. That's a 94-page study. I don't know how many people have read that 94-page study. I'm guessing probably very few of them. It's hard work. I didn't finish it. I didn't read it. Those reports are hard. On page 70, they say that they used heteroscedastic robust standard errors. Do you have any idea what that means? I've none. I've no idea what that means. I doubt anyone else does. But my point is that I'm not qualified to evaluate that report. But there is a community of people who are. There are people who, rather than devoting an evening or two to this, are literally paid to do this professionally. They have careers in it. And the consensus in public health is that masks work, and that some masks work better than others. That was the finding in the report. Does anyone think that the people in the CDC haven't read that report? I doubt it. I doubt anyone believes that. They've read that report and more. They've access to all the studies. They've the time to read them and the expertise to understand them and evaluate them. And with all that, the advice from the CDC remains everyone, regardless of vaccination status, in an area with higher substantial transmission should wear a mask indoors in public settings. We've seen whether we're in an area of higher substantial transmission. We very, very, very much are. The CDC guideline remains that all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status, should wear a mask indoors. You know this, you're doing it. There's a room full of people upstairs or downstairs, I don't know where, who are not, because they don't care to follow those guidelines. So also on the CDC guidelines, quoting, the benefits of mask wearing are well established. If you have a report that disagrees with that, they have that report too. And they've evaluated that and other data. Any mask is better than no mask, ditto. They've seen the reports. So should you substitute your expertise? I'll wrap it up, Mr. Acker. I think maybe I should be deserved a minute or two given earlier speakers.
Mr. Horan, please start to wrap it up.
Yeah. So my question is just, should you be substituting your expertise, the expertise of this board, for the people whose training and careers are devoted to developing the skills needed to evaluate the science? And of course, the answer is no, you should not. Nor should you be substituting the expertise for people downstairs who refuse to follow mask guidelines because they don't particularly care about infecting people they disagree with, or they don't believe that they would be doing so. All the public health consensus is that that is untrue. They are wrong about that. They proudly proclaim that they are not following guidelines. They should be. So if you're going to change the policy, please do the decency to the parents whose children you are putting at risk to explain where you're getting the data that allows you override the public health community. I read it on Facebook, shouldn't be good enough. I heard it on the radio. I read it somewhere on the internet, or I saw it on cable news. None of that should be good enough. Publish on the district website the basis on which you're going to make a decision, if it is to change things. Thank you. I'll yield back to.
Thank you very much.
P. Holy? P. Holy, if you unmute, you'll be heard.
P. Hole, please unmute so we can hear you.
Okay, we'll go to the next speaker.
Holy, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I know I'm under the name Sarah Creamer, but this is actually her daughter. My name's Sophia Cody.
Yes, we
I'm a
can.
junior. Okay, I'm a junior at Abington Heights. So this is Sophia Cody, not Sarah Creamer. The first question I'd like to ask, is the board aware of how fearful so many students are to go to school right now? Because I understand you guys have only heard from the parents, but it's the students who are really being affected right now. When we were in person, each day I'd sit at lunch and about 15 kids would sit there and say, wow, I really think I have COVID, and proceed to cough as well as have a runny nose. They'd all been exposed to at least 10 people in and out of school. And everyone was expecting the board to go virtual, actually, when we returned back from break. And when we didn't, personally, I cried out of fear because I live with my elderly grandmother. And if I were to give her COVID, that could potentially kill her. I have a lot of best friends with asthma and underlying health conditions. And if they were to get COVID, it could also kill them. And I understand it's not a high percentage of students who have these underlying health conditions, but I think it's extremely selfish that people are sitting here arguing to go back to school without masks when there are students who it could severely affect. One of my best friends, who I will not name just for sake of their privacy, he has severe asthma. And if he were to get COVID, he could not go to the hospital, though it would medically impair him extremely, simply because his family could not afford it. He recently had to go into quarantine because he was a close contact, because the entire masonry department in the high school had to close contact because the teacher had COVID. I think the board should extremely consider keeping us virtual, and the idea of getting rid of masks right now is extremely preposterous. Students are terrified to go to school, and while virtual school is a tad bit of an inconvenience, I'll admit, it's manageable. We can do it. Our students, we're fine with it. And quite frankly, the students don't mind getting the extra hour of sleep either. None of my friends have complained about virtual school, and I understand that parents are concerned with the education of their students, but we can manage it, and our teachers are doing a great job of giving us educations virtually. We've only had a week of it, and everything's gone smoothly. Notes have gone smoothly. The teachers have adjusted their lessons. They're doing a great job at virtual school, and there's no reason we couldn't continue it if the numbers rose, or if we just continued it for now to let the numbers drop. Masks really aren't that big of an inconvenience. I wear a mask all day at school, and then hours after school at dance, and it's not that big of a deal. And masks scientifically, actually, they do prevent COVID. They don't prevent you from getting it, but they do prevent you from giving it. So if everyone were to wear their masks properly, and teachers were to enforce the masks, then we could all help not give each other the virus. I thank you all for letting me speak, and I hope you'll take everything I said into consideration, because I know a lot of the things I said is a lot of what the students believe as well.
Thanks, Sophie, for speaking.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Jacqueline?
Jacqueline, please unmute.
Jacqueline, if you'll unmute, you'll be heard. Aaron Bishop.
I hear the echo.
Aaron Bishop.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Dr. Vitale. I saw Dr. Vitale shake her head. So I probably won't even take up the whole 3 minutes. And I want to thank everybody for reading the email that I sent last night and for Dr. Schaefer for calling me today, but I did not have a chance to call you back before the board meeting. I was actually substitute teaching today. I just had a couple of questions about the quarantining, and I appreciate that Dr. Schaefer has recommended that we stop quarantining asymptomatic students. In my math that I didn't do completely the first email, but I corrected the second, after I did it based on Dr. Schaefer's numbers today, the number of hours, instructional hours that students have missed that were asymptomatic, that didn't need to miss, that did not turn up positive from close contact of COVID, is now 33,936 hours of instructional time. I think we all agree that that number is massive and there shouldn't be any more time for that. So my questions are, you guys are talking about the test to stay and the numbers that Dr. Schaefer provided today about the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated and the number of positive and the number showing symptoms was, I think, kind of surprising to all of us, yet unsurprising in some ways. So if the test to stay is based for the unvaccinated, based on the numbers that Dr. Schaefer provided, how can we possibly agree that this is equitable versus the vaccinated versus unvaccinated? We know that the vaccinated are also receiving or contracting the virus, as well as can spread it as well. So why do we feel that it would be right to segregate the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated in this test to stay program, should you feel to adopt it? And if only 2% of over the 600 close contacts are positive, why do we even need tests to stay? If all of those hundreds of people were not positive as a result of close contact, why do we even need to subject them to test to stay? So those are just my questions. And I look forward to hearing you guys' conversation about all you've heard tonight and what the decisions are that you make. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we'll definitely be talking about today and hopefully be able to answer all your questions and the other questions that came up.
Okay, we'll try Jacqueline one more time.
Oh, yes. I finally got unmuted. This is Jacqueline Casillas. Can you guys hear me now okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say the student who spoke prior.
Please introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Oh, Jacqueline Casillas. I live in South Abington Township. I have two boys who currently go to the junior high and the high school. And for rebuttal to the student who just spoke prior, I have to disagree. My boys are wanting to go to school. They're not scared. They're not afraid. They want to be in school. So I would like to know what student she's talking for, because my boys are not one of them. They're not scared of this nonsense crap. Yes, COVID is here. COVID's here to stay. It's not going away. We're going to learn how to deal with it, to live with it, and to build that immune system up, because that's what we've been told all our lives. Build your immune system up by eating dirt, drinking from the water hose, whatever. What is the difference now? My 4-year-old goes to preschool currently right now at Trinity. They are maskless. Ever since they went maskless, my 4-year-old has not been sick since those masks have come off. When those masks were on, She came home on a weekly basis, stuffy nose, coughing, all that stuff. Not COVID, because I had her tested to be on the safe side. Ever since they took them off, she has been nothing. She has been more healthier than she's been ever in her life. My boys, we go everywhere. We've traveled since last year, July of 2020. Sorry, almost 2 years. We've traveled all over the place. Florida. We went to Mexico. We went everywhere. Not once have we been sick. Thank God, I knock on wood every day. Me and my husband have chosen been vaccinated. Will I vaccinate my children? Hell no. I will be the guinea pig for my kids. Let it be the parents' choice to do whatever they want to do with their children. Mask, unmask. If you're scared, stay home. Stay in your bubble. And I love the eye rolls I'm getting right now. It's priceless, really. Because I know you guys aren't hearing, you're not going to listen. But this tyranny has to end. I left California for this specific reason. This tyrannical bullshit that's been happening in California. I came here because I heard Pennsylvania is a great state. It's beautiful. I traveled through here. I uprooted my kids. Perfect timing to come here. I was told South Abington district was the district to be in Pennsylvania because they are absolute perfect for education. I damn near killed myself trying to live in an apartment. I purchased land here to put them specifically in this school district because I was told this was an awesome way to go. Awesome thing. Well, right now, my feeling is the school district they came from in California is the same crap happening now. They don't give a rat's ass about my children. They never have. And you guys apparently are doing the same thing right now. Was I misinformed? I don't know. But all I have to say is, let's go, Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Carrie Farrell?
Please unmute. Please unmute, excuse me. Carrie, please unmute. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I have two young children, both at
Please tell us who you are and where you're from.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you'll state your name and where you're from.
Oh, yes. This is Carrie Farrell. I am from South Abington Township. I have two little boys who attend Waverly Elementary School. So I work in public health and work with some of the top infectious disease and head of the CDC for New York City. I am on several COVID vaccine task force, as well as work for a vaccine manufacturer. And I can tell you that masks work. Any of these parents who have not been in a hospital recently, I can tell you from Geisinger, Janet Weiss Children's to all of the major health systems in New York City, they are packed full of pediatric patients in ICU beds and nursing shortages. All of the hospitals are flooded within the last month and a half with over an 18% increase in pediatric patients. And I think it's very shameful that we don't let the medical professionals weigh in on this, because I can tell you that children that have underlying conditions, and I have it in my own family, are at increased risk. Even if we're boosted and vaccinated, there's still, a chance. So I like to encourage the medical community and the board members to consider, those children that we are protecting when you think about this vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kelly Barrett.
Hello, Kelly Barrett. I live in South Abington Township. Thank you for having me. I just want to say that what we have to take into consideration when it comes to these quarantine rules is not only the families, but our commitment is also to the taxpayers, right, as school board members. And we are crippling not only the families, but the businesses, because we are in households where both parents are required to work at this point to sustain our income or to sustain the household. And it is impossible to stay home and educate our children who are in the younger schools when they're quarantined unnecessarily.
Are you still with us?
Hello?
Yes, does that conclude your remarks?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I don't know how to use this Zoom very well.
Thank you.
Nope.
Another. And I believe finally, Patricia Farrell.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Hi, my name is Patricia. I'm the mother of 3 children.
Yes, we can.
I have 2 in high school and 1 in middle school. And I have never called the board before. I am calling regarding the quarantine period. That seems excessive at this point. It's beyond what the CDC is currently recommending. And I'm concerned about lost instructional time for students who are healthy but quarantined. That's a big concern for me. I have high school students in advanced classes. If my high school student misses 10 days of AP calculus, she's going to be irrevocably behind. And that's a concern. So one of the things my children are concerned about is getting a close contact warning and being out unnecessarily. That being said, I think that if we are going to continue to be quarantining people for a very long period of time, we need to be offering synchronous instruction to those students that are out because of the school district's requirement. The student isn't out for any fault of their own. They are physically well, and they should be able to keep up with their classes while they're being forced to be out of school. That's my 2 cents about that. Those students need to be given an opportunity to keep up with their work and not fall behind. It's the other thing that is concerning is that the current policy appears to disenfranchise students that have not had a vaccine. Now, here's the thing, pro-vaccine, not pro-vaccine, whatever. But the children that for whatever reason can't get a vaccine or their parents decide against that, they really shouldn't be given a different educational opportunity than a student that has been given the vaccine. So that isn't that I raised. And that really is the end of my remark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Acker. I believe that concludes the speakers who have, the other 2 have already spoken.
Okay. Anyone else that's attending the meeting on the Zoom that wishes to speak? Okay, then I believe we have a list of questions that have been brought up in the public comment. And Mr. Young has been kind enough to tell me. Why don't you ask the questions? Okay. You want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it in the other room.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is go through the questions that have been asked. I know a lot of them had to do with test day, and hopefully Dr. Schaefer can talk to that a little bit and give some answers. Mr. Fleming, you got on mute.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fleming?
Not include the questions. These are only legitimate questions. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're good? Okay. The first question from Stephanie Fuentes, if I pronounce her name correctly. She was asking about the school district's policy for quarantining students around family members that test positive, a student test negative.
Mr. Fleming, yeah, I will be speaking with Ms. Fuentes individually to talk about the individual circumstances there around that case.
Okay. Okay. Another question that came up several times is why are we all wearing masks and sitting in surfaces?
Sure. Right now, I'm in a room, a long conference room, and I'm sharing that room with a couple others. And at the same time, as a board and as a team, we have expectations of our students to wear masks during instruction, and certainly we can do the same here during a board meeting as we conduct our business and answer the public's questions.
I echo what Dr. Schaefer says. Asking the Abington Heights community in the building to mask, and we need to be able to do the same.
The next question, Kate Houlihan, is the Test to Stay program still on for tonight? And what is the goal of Test to Stay program?
Sure, exactly. So my recommendation to the board was to eliminate quarantine for asymptomatic close contacts. And in the PowerPoint, you'll say that essentially eliminates the Test to Stay program as it was originally intended when I spoke previously. So it is not a test to comply. The program in and of itself is not ready, and given our data, I think that points to a recommendation of not quarantining asymptomatic close contacts. However, with that said, in the event that that option is available, if there is any family that would like to get tested, certainly that would be an option. However, my recommendation is that asymptomatic close contacts would not be quarantined.
Okay, the next question is from is there an option for students that are quarantined or sick at home to watch to instruction from home?
This has not been an option for our students. And further, if we have and the board votes to approve not quarantining asymptomatic close contacts, then we should not have many students out in quarantine. In addition, what we do have is live tutoring through Comet Tutoring Program for our students that are in isolation. And when our quarantine numbers down and we're only working with isolated students that have COVID, that are COVID positive, then the amount of one-on-one time and one-on-one instruction that those students will get will grow exponentially.
Okay, the last question I had was from Bishop Farrell. This is maybe more rhetorical, but she questioned the quarantine period. It seems excessive. More CDC recommendations. She said that we need to offer a more seamless instruction. The policy seems to disfranchise vaccinated students.
Yep. And that's where our recommendation lies today, is to eliminate the quarantine for asymptomatic close contacts. This would be in closer line with the Penn Policy Lab and what we're seeing from the CDC and the reduction. We're already seeing a reduction in time for isolated cases, which are COVID positive.
All right, thank you. The only questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Fleming. Okay, the next part of it would be our action and discussion items as well. We're going to have another chance to go over some of the issues when we consider the motions that will be put on the table. So that being said, we request to approve the bills. Can we have a motion? We have a motion to approve the bills.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Okay. On the motion. Comments? Roll call.
Mr. Fleming? Mrs. Henderson? Okay. Mrs. Karam? Mr. Medensky? Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney? Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
Our next action item would approve. Apologize. The next item would be
So
approve
moved.
the treasurer's report. Mr. Decky, do you have a treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Medansky? We have a treasurer's report.
Stephanie.
Treasury
Like we had
report.
some
Everybody hear me?
issues.
Yeah, I wasn't hearing anything
Yes, thank
over the
you.
last couple minutes. Anyway, I have 2 months worth of treasury gift. We have the November, and I forgot my glasses. Bear with me. We started with a cash balance of $29,675,023. We had revenues of $3,292,058, which over 2.6 million was local revenues. So that gave us a total cash available of $32,960,281. Our net disbursements for November were $4,003,946, which gave us the cash balance going to December of thank you. Balance of $28,964,335. That was our starting point for December. We had total monthly revenues of $3,253,519 for the month of December, which I'm going to say over 2 million was state and local revenue, which was our basic subsidy, the transportation, and retirement. We had net disbursements of $4,100,042, which leads us a cash balance moving into 22 of $28,117 and $117,000, excuse me, $812.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the?
So moved.
Yeah, I think I will.
Second?
Yeah.
On the question,
Mr. Acker.
Ms. Karam.
Ms. Zucker?
This is a question on the report. Ms. Karam. Guess you're up, and then Mrs. Karam. That. Mr. Robeson?
Yes, Mr. Yes, hopefully you hear me. What I would recommend we do, just because of, I think that there's some bandwidth and delays in, at the very least, if everyone could go off camera, and it might help with the bandwidth and delays. Just a suggestion.
Let's combine a couple people.
Okay. Mrs. Karam, you had a question or comment?
No, I was seconding the motion.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Thank you. Mr. Azar, do you have a question? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Mrs. O'Day.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yeah.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney? Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker, I would ask the board to consider approving.
Thank you very much. Dr. Schaefer, take second discussion items.
Yes, I would ask that the board consider approving the personnel report, items C 1 through 6 in a block.
Okay. Can we hear a motion on that?
So moved. Second.
On the
Second.
On the motions? Roll call, Mrs. O'Day?
Mrs. Karam,
Emily, you say yes.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay. Next action item would be ID, approve daily van rate for the Branch busing van 4B at the daily rate of $60.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second.
On the motion, roll call.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Let me. Okay. Okay. All right, the next item is item C, request the board to approve the December, January volunteer list. As an
So
item,
moved.
listed item 1 in the packet.
Mr. Acker, it's
Do we have a motion?
item E. Are you
Yes.
saying item E? Yes, okay. Okay.
Yes,
So
item E,
moved.
request the board to approve the December, January volunteer list.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second? On the motion? Roll call, Mrs. O'Day, please.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah, Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam, Mr. Medensky,
Can't get this
Yes.
off.
Mr. Acker,
Yeah.
9-0.
I'll just leave it then. Next item is item F. Consider a motion to approve the affiliation agreement between the Pennsylvania State University and Abington Heights School District as listed in item 2.
So moved.
Second,
Can we have a second
second,
on the motion? On the motion. Roll call.
Mrs. Tierney,
yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, item G, request board to approve the Goodwill Industries of Northeastern Pennsylvania agreement as in item number 3.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second? May we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. On the motion? Roll call,
Mr.
please.
Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay. I consider a motion to approve the sports medicine and student health services agreement with Lehigh Valley Health Network as contained in item number 5.
So moved.
Second,
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay. Item J, consider a motion to approve the Howard Gardner Multiple Intelligence Charter School 2022 renewal application as contained in item 6.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. On the motion? Roll call, please, Mrs. O'Day.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
What's up?
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Go on mute.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Sure. Okay, next item. Item K. Consider a motion to approve the banking resolutions and signature cards as contained in item number 7.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
Second.
on the question? Roll call, Mrs. O'Day.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, next item, consider a motion to approve the Act 1 resolution, which represents the Act 1 index limit of 3.4% for the 2022-2023 budget as contained in item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Item M, request the board to authorize the superintendent of schools to fill vacant positions during the 2021-2022 school year.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Second,
Second.
on the motion? Roll call, please, Mrs. O'Day.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Item N, consider a motion to formally end the agreement for acting superintendent with James Mirabelli with a contract fulfillment date of January 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
on the motion?
Mr. Acker, this is
I'd
Mr.
like to
Robeson.
say
I just had a comment to make. I think Jim did an excellent job in filling the role. He was unbelievably responsive to requests from all over, constituents, board members. I think he did a great job, and I'm just grateful for his service.
I echo everything Phil just said. Excellent job, Jim. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
I appreciate everyone for the opportunity. It was a great experience, and thanks for everyone for bearing with me during that time. So thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mirabelli, we will miss you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Item O, consider a motion to approve the settlement agreement with student number 12X. See item number 9.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Item P, consider a motion to approve the settlement agreement with employee number 885. I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second,
Second? On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, item Q. Consider a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Abington Heights Education Association regarding employee ID badges.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, the last item is item R, and I wonder, Dr. Schaefer, if you would like to put these motions on the table for us.
Yes, Mr. Acker, I would. The first motion that I'd like to put on the table is regarding masking. And it would be beginning on Monday, January the 24th, to align the mask mandate to community transmission, utilizing the weekly percent positivity rate for Lackawanna County as published by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Masks would be required when we are in the high and substantial positivity rate, which reflects 8% and higher. Masks would not be required when we're in the moderate and low positivity rate, which is below 7.99%. Change the masking requirements to reflect alignment with the DOH early warning dashboard data.
So moved.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is our. Do we have a second
Yep. Yes.
on the motion?
Yes, I have a question, Michelle Tierney. When will the district be notified that the change in the mask requirement would take place?
The changes would take place beginning Monday, January the 24th. And we would notify parents and community after the vote, which we would communicate tomorrow. If approved.
I mean, when we hit a different rate, when the rate changes, how will the families be notified? And how much time will they have to change that?
We'll take a look at the dates. It's on 7 days, but they would begin on a Monday. We would have a notification as early as the Friday before.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Is there a roll call?
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam, Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
I've talked about this before in our last work session at length. I truly believe that we should not be putting a mandate in that includes masks that clearly don't work. It has been proven through the gold standard of a randomized control trial, although it was done in a clustered format. There's been a lot of opinion on this, and I think masking our children, whether it's a cloth mask that clearly doesn't work, or something is very, very tough to wear for 8 hours a day, such as an N95, should be up to the parents. So I am voting no.
Okay, Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1.
Mr. Acker, I would ask that the board consider a motion regarding quarantining. The motion would be beginning on Monday, January the 24th, that we eliminate quarantine for asymptomatic close contacts. This would mean that we change requirements within our health and safety plan. And this option eliminates the asymptomatic testing to remain in school.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I have a question, Dr. Schaefer. So as it relates to that, if we approve this and we no longer quarantine asymptomatic children, that option will make test to stay be optional for the parents at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. When test to stay is available, if a parent would want to use that program, they could.
So there will be no requirement for any sort of test to stay program if we approve it.
Exactly. There will be no requirement to participate in test to stay in order to remain in school.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Mr. Acker, I think we
We
inadvertently.
missed one item.
Yep.
Item R, consider a motion to approve the supplemental services agreement with Lehigh Valley Network to provide nursing assistance on an as needed basis. See item number 12.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I have a comment. I think this is the second contract that we are entering into with the Lehigh Valley Health Network. And I think this is an incredible opportunity and a beautiful partnership with them. And I thank them for entering into Abington Heights and helping us to help our students and help the sporting events and all the health that they're doing to help our district. So thank you to Lehigh Valley Network.
Okay. Mr. Dayan, roll call, please.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0. And Mr. Acker, did you vote on the University of Scranton? I don't have a vote on that. That's item H.
Thank you very much. The rest of the agenda is informational items and use of the facilities.
Mr. Acker?
Is there any new business?
Mr. Acker, I think there is an item that we didn't vote on in agreement with the University of Scranton. H.
Thank you.
I have that as item H.
Yes, we did not vote on that.
We should cover that. I could consider a motion to approve the University of Scranton affiliation site agreement with Abington Heights School District as contained in item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Budensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay. Any new business? Old business? I thank the board for your patience and for the public for working with us on this technically troubling evening. We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Good night, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.